Growing up, it was obvious to anyone who paid attention my younger brother Jake was the golden child. Mom and Dad practically worshipped the ground he walked on. Lie, on the other hand, was more of an afterthought. If Jake wanted something, he got it. If I wanted something, I was being selfish. Still, I tried not to resent him. It wasn't his fault, after all. He was just playing the role they assigned him. I figured once we became adults, things would even out. I was wrong. Everything came crashing down when my grandfather passed away last year. He was the only person in my family who ever made me feel truly seen. He listened to me, supported me, and when he died, it felt like a piece of me had gone. With him, but in the middle of my grief, a bombshell dropped. Grandpa left me everything. Not just a little bit everything. His house, his savings, his investments, all of it. He left Jake and the rest of my family nothing. I couldn't believe it. I was expecting something small, maybe a sentimental item, but not this. And I knew the second my father found out, all hell would break loose. I wasn't wrong. When the will was read, I sat in stunned silence. The lawyer, a tired-looking man in his 50s, pushed his glasses up his nose and cleared his throat. "Mr. Thompson wanted to make sure you were taken care of," he said, glancing at me like he expected me to react in some way. "Are you sure there's nothing for Jake?" I asked, my voice hoarse. He shook his head. "Your grandfather was very clear. Everything goes to you." He had his reasons. I could already hear my father's reaction in my head. Sure enough, the moment my family found out, it was like a bomb exploded. This has to be a mistake. My dad shouted, his face turning an alarming shade of red. There's no way Dad would do this. He loved Jake. He wouldn't just cut him out like this. My mom, standing beside him, looked equally outraged. "You need to contest this," she said to me, as if I had any control over Grandpa's final wishes. "Mom, Dad, I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know about it until today." I tried to reason. Jake, for his part, was silent. His expression was unreadable, but I could see the way his fists clenched at his sides. I had spent my whole life being ignored in favor of him. Now, for the first time, the roles were reversed, and I could tell he hated it. Probably manipulated him. Dad spat. "That's the only explanation. You must have sweet-talked your way into that money. That hurt more than it should have." "I did no such thing," I said firmly. Grandpa made his choice, but they weren't listening. They never did. The days following the will reading were pure hell. My parents called me every day, demanding I do the right thing and split the inheritance with Jake. They kept saying it wasn't fair, that I should be thinking of family instead of myself. "Jake has a future ahead of him," Mom cried over the phone one night. "He needs this money more than you do." I gripped the phone tighter, and I don't. She hesitated. "You're more independent. You'll be fine on your own. But Jake, he has dreams." I nearly laughed at the irony. Of course, Jake's dreams mattered more than my entire well-being. "No," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I'm not giving him anything. Grandpa wanted me to have this, and I'm going to respect his wishes." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Then Mom exhaled sharply. I hope you're prepared to lose this family." And just like that, the choice was made for me. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was so wrong. A week later, my parents showed up at my house, unannounced. They pounded on the door until I opened it. Jake was with them, looking as uncomfortable as I felt. "We need to talk," Dad said, pushing past me into my own house. I crossed my arms. "What?" "This is about the money." "It's not just about the money," Mom interrupted. "It's about family, about fairness. Do you really want to be the kind of person who lets greed ruin everything?" I let out a humorless laugh. "You mean the kind of person you raised me to be, because you never cared about fairness?" When Jake was getting everything and I got nothing. Dad's jaw tightened. That was different. "How?" I challenged. "Because you decided it was." No one had an answer. Jake, who had been quiet the whole time, finally spoke up. "I don't want to fight," he said. I don't understand why Grandpa did this." For the first time, I saw something genuine. In his eyes, Maybe you should ask yourself that, I said, my voice softer than before. Because I think you already know. Jake's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. And that's when I realized, deep down, he did know. He knew why Grandpa made the choice he did. Maybe he had known all along, but knowing it didn't change anything. I thought maybe after a few weeks things would die down. They didn't. In fact, they got worse. Mom stopped calling. Dad unfriended me on Facebook, like we were in high school. Jake sent a few awkward texts, mostly filled with apologies and guilt, but I could tell even he was being pressured to pick a side. And surprise, it wasn't mine. Then came the letter. Yes. An actual letter, not an email, not a text, but a handwritten letter from my father. It arrived on a Tuesday, folded neatly inside a formal envelope, like he thought this was some official business. In his neat, blocky handwriting, he wrote, "If you don't transfer at least half of the inheritance to Jake by the end of the month, you will be forced to take legal action. Consider this your final chance to make things right. No greeting, no sign-off. It's just a threat." I stared at the paper for a long time. My hands were shaking, not out of fear, but fury. Legal action, really? I called him immediately. "Did you really send me a letter threatening to sue me?" "You left us no choice," Dad snapped. "You know this isn't what your grandfather would have wanted. You manipulated him." There it was again. The accusation I couldn't seem to escape. "You know what? Sue me," I said coldly. "Go ahead, but you and I both know you don't have a case." Grandpa made his will legally and intentionally. Was in his right mind, and if you try to drag this to court, you'll lose. There was a long pause. Then more quietly, "You'll regret this." "No," I said. "I regret believing you ever saw me as part of this family." I hung up that night. I didn't sleep, not because I was afraid of being sued, but because I realized something horrible. I had always been alone. Grandpa had been my only real family, and now even his memory was being used as a weapon against me. The next day, Jake showed up. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept either. He stood on my porch for a long time before I opened the door. "Can we talk?" I nodded. We sat on the porch. Steps like we were kids again, back when things were simpler. "I didn't ask them to do this," he started. "But you didn't stop them either." He winced. "I didn't know how. They keep saying I deserve it, that I need it more than you do. Honestly, ... I don't even know what to believe anymore." I looked at him. Really looked at him. For the first time, I didn't see the golden child. I saw a scared kid, caught between guilt and loyalty. "Jake, do you want the money?" He hesitated. "I want our family back. That's not an answer." He exhaled shakily. "No, I don't want the money. Not like this." "But they won't let it go." "Then tell them to stop. Tell them you don't want it. You have that power." "They won't listen to me, you know that." "They never have." And there it was. The truth neither of us had said out loud. Even as the golden child, Jake had never truly been in control. He was just the favorite pawn in their game. And me, I was the black sheep they kept at arm's length. But now, with Grandpa's gift, I finally had something they couldn't take from me. I wasn't going to give it up. The silence after the cease and desist letter was almost eerie. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits, nothing. For a while, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, they'd finally gotten the message. But peace in my family never lasts. Long it started with a call from my job. HR asked me to come in for a friendly conversation. Turns out someone had anonymously emailed them a concerned tip, suggesting I'd forged the will, implying elder abuse. It was complete BS, of course, and HR saw through it fast. But it shook me. Not because I was in trouble, but because I knew who it had to be. There's a specific kind of heartbreak that comes when your own family tries to burn down your life. Just to prove a point, I forwarded the email to my lawyer, and she was livid. Considered filing harassment charges, but without proof of who sent it, it'd be messy. So I sat with the anger, the betrayal, the ache of realizing my parents truly didn't care about me only. What? I could give them. Then came the breaking point. Jake showed up at my door, He looked like hell. Skinny, bags under his eyes, the kind of exhaustion you can't fake. I didn't even get a word in before he collapsed onto my porch step and started crying. Not dramatic sobs, just silent tears. Shoulders shaking. I got kicked out, he said. Dad said if I couldn't get you to give up the house, I was just dead weight. I stood there, stunned. What do you mean you couldn't get me too? Jake shook his head. They used me. Said I had to talk sense into you. When I didn't, when I told them I agreed with you, they lost it. Said I was betraying the family. Didn't know what to say. This was the same brother who used to laugh when our parents tore me down, who once told me I was just mad because no one likes you. Now he was crumbling on my porch, asking for help, and I hated how much I still wanted to help him. I've got nowhere else to go, he whispered. I should have said no. I should have reminded him of every awful thing he ever said to me. But instead, I stepped aside and opened the door. That night, I barely slept. Every creak in the house made me tense. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for Jake to flip, for my parents to show up, for the peace I'd built to collapse, but it didn't. Instead, I found myself watching Jake sleep on my couch, curled up under the same quilt Grandma made us when we were kids. And I wondered, was this the start of something new, or just another mistake? I did let Jake move in with me. It wasn't an easy decision, and trust me, it felt like swallowing glass. But something about the way he sounded that night defeated. Distant from the version of him I grew up hating, pushed me to say yes. Made it clear he wasn't here to guilt-trip me or play peacekeeper for our parents. If he was going to stay, he had to respect my space, my rules, and most importantly, the boundaries I was barely keeping intact. The first few days were awkward, like strangers trying to coexist. We passed each other in the kitchen like coworkers, who didn't really like each other, but had to be civil then. On a Tuesday night, I came home to find him cooking dinner. You don't have to do that, I said. I know, just thought it'd be nice. It wasn't much boxed pasta and a jar of Alfredo sauce, but the gesture landed. It was the first time in years Jake had done something for me without being told or expected to. We sat down and ate mostly in silence. But at some point he said, I really didn't know about the phone call to your job. I didn't say anything. I swear, I'd never mess with your career. That's low, even for Mom and Dad. That made me look up. You think they did it? Jake shrugged. They're desperate. I don't even recognize them anymore. It's like they've built this whole reality where you stole something from us. But deep down, I know Grandpa left it to you for a reason that cracked something open in me. A piece of resentment slipped loose. Then why didn't you speak up? I asked. Jake winced. Because I was scared, not of you of them, of what it meant to admit I didn't deserve everything I got. It was probably the most honest thing he'd ever said to me. We weren't magically healed after that dinner. But it was a shift. Jake started pulling his weight around the house. Got a job at a local bookstore. Saved up quietly. And I started to see him not as the golden child, but as just another guy trying to figure his life out. One night, we sat on the porch drinking cheap beers. And I asked him something I'd been thinking about for weeks. If the will had been reversed, if Grandpa gave everything to you, would you have given me any of it? Jake was quiet for a long time. Then he said, a year ago? No, I would have assumed I deserved it. I wouldn't have even felt guilty. He turned to me, eyes glassy. But now, yeah, I would have given you half, maybe more, because I finally get what it feels like to be left out. It wasn't the apology I once wanted, but it was real. Maybe that was enough. As the months passed, Jake eventually found an apartment. He moved out with a simple, thanks for letting me stay. You didn't have to. Yeah, I said, but I'm glad I did. Kept in touch. Not every day, not even every week, but enough that I started to feel like I had a brother instead of a rival. As for my parents, well, they never did apologize. The cease and desist shut them up, but it didn't fix the damage. I saw them once briefly at a cousin's wedding. My mother wouldn't meet my eyes. My father just muttered something under his breath and walked away, and you know what? That was fine, because I wasn't doing this to win them back. I was doing it to finally break free. A few weeks ago, I visited Grandpa's grave. brought some of his favorite licorice and a small folding chair, just sat there, catching him up on life. I told him I still missed him every day, that the house felt a little less heavy now, that I was starting to forgive, even if I wasn't ready to forget. And as I sat there in the quiet, I realized something I never had before. Sometimes, the real inheritance isn't money or property, it's the chance to start over, to live life on your terms, to unlearn the lies your family told you about who you are and what you're worth. And in that sense, Grandpa gave me more than I could ever repay.